they're the number one defense for a reason. You know, they do a lot of special things. Starts up front. Of course, Myles Garrett is one of the best players to ever play his game, and he proves it week in and week out. And their linebackers do a great job. Six is a great linebacker. He's a great player. And then on the back end, they do a good job of having sticky coverage and things like that. So just got to be on our A game and execute at a high level, and I'm excited for the matchup.
Hello and welcome aboard the Paul Gallant Show on this Friday. Gotta get down on Friday. Texans in the playoffs, January 12th, 2024. I am Paul Gallant. This is the most interactive sports talk show in Houston. And guys, it's finally here. I've been waiting all week just to kick this thing off. I've been rocking away at the edge of my seat, but now I'm ready to roll. Here they come to mix things up. Bet your boots they're tough enough. Let's get ready to root for our team. Hey, all you Texans, get up and scream because it's football time in Houston. Man, we're ready to play. We've got no time to lose now. It's red, white, and blue on Saturday. I'm very excited for tomorrow afternoon's 3:30 Texans-Browns game, which will be aired on NBC. I will actually be out the game. Congrats to the Texans. They sold the game out. We'll see how many Texans fans are in attendance. I do think it's going to be better than what we have seen all regular season. And I got to say, things are really trending in a positive direction towards a possible Texans W. And it's on the injury front for a change. So offensively, Saturday in Indianapolis, the Texans had pretty much just Nico Collins at wide receiver. Yeah, there was John Mechie. He's been a bit of a disappointment in year number 2, fully healthy. Also, Xavier Hutchinson. He's a late-round draft pick. You're not expecting much from him. So it's a big deal that Nico Collins had the day that he did without much help at wide receiver. Shout out to Gus Bradley's very predictable cover 3 defense, which CJ Stroud was able to carve up. But Robert Woods, dealing with a hip injury, and Noah Brown, dealing with a back injury, were back yesterday at practice. So the Texans should have an offense that is full strength to go up against that defense that you heard CJ Stroud mention just a moment ago. And defensively, we got some really good news. First off, Will Anderson, who was unable to go for the previous Texans-Browns game on Christmas Eve, a game where Joe Flacco was sacked just once, he will be able to play, still dealing with an ankle injury. He is officially listed as questionable. And even better, the Houston Texans' leading sacker, Jonathan Grenard, when asked about his status yesterday, had this to say.
Just getting back in the swing of stuff, felt pretty good. Just going to continue to see where we go and progress through the week. And Saturday we're going to be good to go.
How important is it to make Joe Flacco uncomfortable?
Very. It's very essential to this game. As we know, last time, Amari Cooper had 200 plus, out there, and that's what we're trying to affect the quarterback so that way that doesn't happen. Obviously, you can get off the spot a little bit. And this is a playoff game, so somebody's going to have to make some plays. They're going to make plays. We're going to make plays. We're expecting a hard-fought physical game, but definitely it's going to be a matter of who doesn't mess up the most, who makes the most plays.
With all those latter things, a lot of cliches, but at the first part of that from Jonathan Grenard, what you heard, I'm going to be good to go on Saturday. To have your 2 leading sackers for a team that had the best record as far as sack number in NFL history. Not NFL history. What am I talking about here? The Houston Texans, shut up, Sean. The Houston Texans broke the franchise record for sacks in a season. Yes, it was 16 games. And yes, the last 2 years where it was 17 games wasn't good. But they're going to have their 2 best sack artists out there, both Jonathan Grenard and Will Anderson. Nailed it that time. Want to just edit it out, Sean? Can we do that? Too late? No?
Yeah, I'll just dump it.
All right, cool. We'll just dump those 30 seconds.
People thought you
we're having a mild
went on
stroke.
A binge, yeah.
I had a little Gary Kubiak moment right there. But guess what? I will be able to finish today's show, much to the chagrin of lots of people out there. So that's the promising development for the Texans on the injury front. Now you've got the Browns, Yikes, the Browns had a bad day yesterday. So we already know that they're banged up given that Joe Flacco is starting. Also, Amari Cooper hasn't played since Christmas Eve. They've lost 3 tackles this year to injury. Did you know their left tackle played for the Texans earlier this year? Like, that's how bad things have gotten for them. The Texans' offensive line, which was flailing wildly to throw any guy out there, had Jaron Christian on the team earlier in the year. He's their starting left tackle. He has been for 9 starts this year. James Hudson's their right tackle. These guys are backups. Grant Delpit, their safety, who has started all 13 games that he's played this year, out. Dustin Hopkins, their kicker, out. So they're down to their backup. But here's the biggest development. And it took place yesterday at practice. Denzel Ward, their stud cornerback, a guy who shadows the opponent's best receiver all game long. He injured his knee in practice, and it's unclear if he'll be ready to go on Saturday. I imagine the Browns like the idea of throwing the fog of war out there to make the Houston Texans think twice about whether or not they can go into a game without having to fear Denzel Ward. But if Ward's a guy who follows the best receiver for whatever team he goes up against every single game, and you got Nico Collins coming off of a nearly 200-yard receiving performance, I mean, aren't you going to do the exact same thing that you did on Saturday? First play of the game, bomb it to Nico. Test Denzel Ward out. If he's even good to go. If he's not good to go, I mean, I think you can make some free money here. Nico Collins receiving yards, 73.5. Check at 10:30. MyBookie.ag, promo code BET975. Check at 10:30 what the status of Denzel Ward is. Not 10:30, an hour and a half before the game. So that would be about 2 o'clock. Check at 2 o'clock to see what Denzel Ward's stat is. Sean is writing this down. I like that. Listen, if you want to make money, Paul Gallant is going to give it to you through his friends at MyBookie.ag. If Denzel Ward can't go, hammer the over on that. I'm telling you. Stroud struggled against man coverage this season in terms of quarterback rating. Against zone, he leads the NFL. But against man, not so good, which maybe doesn't bode well. But if Denzel Ward isn't out there, and Nico Collins, you would assume he's going to cover Nico all game. That's a huge development. And we know Stroud's good at throwing the football deep. So I think that's the biggest development of all yesterday. And it's all adding up, I think, to the Texans squeaking out a win. The line has even changed since yesterday. Yesterday at the end of the show, it was Browns by 3. The line is now Browns by 2. I wonder if that'll be even by kickoff tomorrow. This Denzel Ward injury, I think, is a very big deal and great news for the Texans. So no real excuses in this one. You're healthy. The Browns are more banged up than they've been typically. And you also might have the great Myles Garrett eraser. Saw this yesterday per Next Gen Stats. Laramie Tunsil has allowed just 1 pressure in 40 matchups, which basically means, I guess, snaps against one another in terms of pass rush. Because I doubt that Laramie Tunsil has played against Myles Garrett 40 times. That sounds like an NBA kind of matchup. But he has allowed just 1 pressure in 40 matchups against Myles Garrett. It's the lowest pressure rate that any offensive lineman has allowed against Garrett. Everything's trending in the right direction. Do you have the battle red big balls to pick the Houston Texans to victory? I'm feeling it right now. A text from the 832. You're mentioning the Browns playing man-to-man coverage with Nico Collins. I don't understand why we don't put Stingley man-to-man on Amari Cooper. Am I missing something? We're all confused. We're all confused. We talked about it yesterday. Derek Stingley's the defensive player of the month, and he has a 1.7 passer rating against him. But D'Amico Ryan says that the Texans just don't do that defensively. Okay, I guess.
Yeah, it's something where I understand that your defense has like certain principles, but I mean, in the playoffs, dude, when you have a guy who went for 200 plus against you last time they played, and you have, like you said, awesome cornerback, defensive player of the month, like, I don't know. I think this is the time to maybe break the rules a little bit.
I do
and
too.
throw them on them. I'll be interested to see. That's definitely something to monitor early in the game.
It would be a ballsy change-up all of a sudden by DeMeco Ryans to say, this time, we're actually going to do it.
Yeah.
And it also makes sense because, again, he had nearly 300 yards receiving against you in a game.
And this is where I don't understand enough about NFL defense to know what exactly it matters to have a cornerback lining up. If you're manning up anyway, having them line up in the same spot every down or moving with them. Like I
don't get it either, man.
I don't really understand what that means. I guess maybe it's a tell that you are playing man, and so they can call plays against that.
Right, but even then, it doesn't necessarily have to be man. You could play zone, but they like to play their corners off of the line of scrimmage. They give a lot of cushion. I think it's one of those things that by design is supposed to prevent the big plays. Ironically, they do a terrible job of preventing those big plays despite the cushion. But I think that's more about the safeties than it is about the cornerback. Anyway, maybe we'll see something different. But Amari Cooper is really, really good, and that's still going to be tough for the Texans, even if Derek Stingley's playing really, really well of late.
Batted down and intercepted. Intercepted by J.J. Watt. Touchdown, Houston. Here he is right here. Watch a little swim move. He sees the quarterback and elevates, catches the football. I'm not sure there's a defensive tackle in the league that would catch that football. Remember, Tom, as you said, a tight end at Central Michigan, so ball skills are evident.
One of the few times that you had to be there. That call did not do that moment justice. It did not. One of those moments where you probably, even if you hate Joe Buck, wish that you had Joe Buck on the call, or our guy Jim Nance. I saw him on with our guy Gupta, and he was talking about how awesome it would be for the entire country to experience a Houston Texans dramatic Super Bowl run. You know what? If they do advance far in the playoffs, they will become the darlings of everybody. You'll have some people calling them frauds, but I think that of all the teams to root for from a neutral perspective, that there are very, very, very few teams outside of maybe the Detroit Lions who are easier to root for these playoffs. Like, I think it's really just Detroit.
Yeah, Lions, maybe Browns.
Yeah, the Browns, but they did the Deshaun Watson thing. Like, they don't deserve this from a karmic perspective. They sold their soul for that. They honestly deserve to be punished.
I will say it makes it way easier because Watson isn't playing and because it's like basically the polar opposite.
Correct.
That most casuals can like get behind and Flacco.
That's certainly true. And it is fun that it's Flacco of all guys,
yes,
too.
But you're right that there's probably some percentage of people that would just still hold ill will towards the franchise.
I'm actually curious. I mean, they're obviously playing each other, but say the Texans weren't playing the Browns, how many people would be rooting for the Browns in the playoffs? I mean, I think we're rooting for them to lose so that we get a better draft pick regardless. So there's at least one city in the United States of America that is 100%, I think, out on the Browns for just about every single reason possible.
Fourth biggest city in the country.
Hell yeah.
So it's a lot of votes.
Third.
It's a lot of votes.
Right. It depends on the day.
Yeah. I think Lions, Texans are probably 1-2. I can't imagine anyone's rooting for, or like neutrals are rooting for Cowboys or Packers, or maybe not really the Rams or Steelers or Bills. No, yeah. I think there really is only two that are like
pretty much
America's team potential.
Yeah,
and they. I picked against both of them. No, I picked the Texans.
Yeah, you picked the Texans. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Damn, you already waffling? You already John Kerry?
I am waffling.
Jeez.
I'm a flip-flopper.
Figure it out, dude. All right. I saw a very interesting post. It's the NFL first team All-Pros released by the Associated Press. Guess how many Houston Texans made the list? Sean, would you like to answer? Offense, defense, special teams. Number one special teams unit.
Special teams. Give me two. Two would be an appropriate amount. Maybe Grenard, maybe Tunsil, maybe a returner.
0.
Oh.
Honestly, I think that D'Angelo Ross should have been the special teamer. But hey, they gave it to Miles Killebrew in Pittsburgh.
Kaimi Fairbairn, maybe?
Fairbairn didn't play long enough. That's the big problem for him. Laramie Tunsil did not make it. Guess who did make it? Myles Garrett, who the Texans are going to play on Saturday. And if you were listening earlier in the show, Laramie Tunsil is better at blocking Myles Garrett than any offensive lineman in the league. And this did have me thinking about when David Robinson won the MVP over Hakeem Olajuwon, and then Hakeem Olajuwon played David Robinson in the playoffs and kicked his ass. Is there a potential for a football reenactment of one man being stiffed and taking it out on the guy going up against him? On a serious note, I think any competitor that has been pushing to be first-team All-Pro the way Laramie Tunsil has been the last couple of years, with the opportunity to go up against a first-team All-Pro tomorrow, you telling me Laramie isn't going to be pissed off about this one? And he already does pretty well against Myles Garrett. That's going to be fascinating to watch. Tunsil's going to play pissed. Hopefully being pissed off does not lead to more false starts.
Yeah, he's ready to go.
Maybe there will be no false starts on Sunday, Sean, because he's so locked in.
Maybe. I that's the most charitable way to think about it. I do think that, I mean, obviously I don't remember the 1995
You weren't
Spurs
alive.
Rockets.
It's fair.
Yes. But I do remember the story. And yes, I do think there is some potential for it. It's not out of the realm of possibility, because you'd think like, no, it's harder because, to do it against an all-time great like Myles Garrett, it's like, well, David Robinson was an all-time great too. So it would be cool. It would definitely be cool. It'd be a nice little, H-Town tradition of getting boned in the voting and then playing them in the first round.
Perfect.
I think it's also it happened with the Rockets. Happened with the Rockets with Harden and Westbrook.
The worst. I mean, what's worse?
3-6 matchup.
Let's be honest. What's worse, the upcoming presidential election and how much it's going to divide our country, or James Harden versus Russell Westbrook for the NBA MVP?
At least Harden.
The answer is the MVP conversation.
At least Harden was good. At least there was a good option. Also, Kawhi was really good that year. Kawhi should. If Kawhi had.
Was he the Robert Kennedy Jr.?
No, maybe.
Anyway, guys, it's the Paul Gallant Show. We got a little political.
Yes.
We have the balls to do it. We don't care. It's the 713-780-3776 is the HRMP listener line. You can call, you can text in, you can join us on Twitter as well. Gallant says. One little tidbit before we move on to garbage time. This was an interesting tweet, and it really just goes to show you how much this organization has changed over the course of the last calendar year. Arian Foster is somebody who I thought was done with football altogether. He's a guy who still lives here in Houston. And he tweeted out in response to a question that was asked, like if he would consider basically like coming back in the fold for the Texans, showing up a little bit more. He said he'd be open to it. I think people loved Arian Foster when he was here. And okay, maybe he gets a little weird online. I like that he actually has a personality and interests outside of football. We all like people who are a little bit outside the box. Why else are you listening to this show with me? I'd love to see them bring him back out for Sunday's game. Now, I don't want them to bring out Arian Foster, J.J. Watt, Andre Johnson, and Brian Cushing wearing the Letterman jackets, but I kind of do. So that they can exercise the demons of the Letterman jackets.
I don't know.
Is it too dangerous?
Too dangerous. I was thinking maybe the red Texans Hall of Fame blazer, but Arian's not in it yet.
I don't know if he's ever going to get in it.
He should. I mean, he sounds open to reconciliation. I imagine Cal and Hannah will, I don't know, be more open to it than Bob.
100%. I think you're right.
D'Amico helps.
Because it definitely was a Bob thing,
Yeah.
whether you think that was justified or not, that was the reason for a lot of guys.
That's the reason.
Right.
Who cares if it's wrong or right? That's
DeAndre Hopkins, that
Yeah.
I think started everything. Dwayne Brown, like he literally asked for a trade
Because Aaron
after
Foster,
that game against the Seahawks.
Aaron Foster, was probably my second favorite behind Andre Johnson, Texan of all time. I think it's those two and then J.J. Watt for like favorites.
Yeah.
And then, I mean,
Foster,
if you're listening to the all-time greats, he's top 5. Like
I agree. I think
it's those 3 guys.
as far as
I don't know
Texans
who.
playoff performances go, we're obviously going to talk about J.J. Watt, but it's never been like the Texans have been impressive in any of their playoff games. Both the wins over the Bengals, the win that they had against the Raiders, the win against the Bills. They played like crap until the very end of that game. I think that's all 4 playoff wins in Texans history off the top of my head. So the most impressive performance by any Texan, and it did help that he had that awesome 2011 offensive line in front of him. But when Arian Foster and the Texans, despite having TJ Yates under center, went on the road to Baltimore and ran all over Baltimore, despite being as one-dimensional as it gets, that was one of the most impressive performances, if not the most impressive playoff performances by the Houston Texans. And I am with you, Sean. I do think he should be in the Ring of Honor, but I do think that the Texans are probably just going to keep it to J.J. Watt, Andre Johnson, and the late Bob McNair. I don't know if any of the other past Texans are going to make it outside of down the road DeMeco Ryans because of his contributions as a head coach. You're not going to see Brian Cushing on it. You're not going to see Dwayne Brown on it. You're not going to see, I'm trying to think of other guys that are even in the same stratosphere. Yeah, Hopkins won't be on it ever. Definitely not going to see Deshaun Watson on it.
Rightfully so. It is wild that, because my list would be like those guys, Dwayne Brown, Hopkins, and
Schaub?
Foster.
Nah, not Schaub.
No,
Can't do Schaub. He's close though.
He is. He's close.
I saw him on a Texans podcast this week, and I was like, "Hey, I'd like to see Schaub out there again."
Yeah,
I thought
mean,
people
he could be
treated him
around.
like people's. Look, it obviously got frustrating when things fell off the wagon, but people were dicks to him. Especially with that whole like showing up at his house thing, which was honestly like just one of the worst things that we've seen among Houston sports fans, and we've seen some things.